I'm Steve from Propeller Warehouse on the Sunshine Coast. I'm here to give a talk about what's available for propellers in the smaller horsepower groups called portable groups for each engine, and give you a little bit of an insight as to why certain engines have certain types of propellers at the same time. These portable groups could even go to 20 horsepower because there's a lot of fuel injection now coming into that group of engines, and this is part one of a 7-part series talking about propellers in different horsepower groups. So we'll go all the way from 25, 30, 50, 60, 70, then into another group, 90 to 140, then into 150 to 250 horsepower, which is used extensively in Australia on a lot of offshore boats, and then talk a little bit about what the future holds in the 350, 400 horsepower, the bushes, and a number of those things. So back to portable engines, not really that exciting. But there's a lot of them sold in Australia. The first group that would talk about would have to be Yamaha, and Yamaha offer basically 2.5 little portables for canoes, for small dinghies, 4, 5, 6, which is quite popular, up to the 6 to 9.9. Now there's been a few things that have happened in the last couple of years. Maybe it was caused by COVID, I don't know really, but some of the old 9.9s that you would expect to have a 9.25 diameter prop, been around for 30 years, they're now finding that 6 and 8 horsepower gearboxes are going on 9.9s, and the blade geometries are a lot smaller. Therefore the thrust is a lot less, therefore there's a lot of disappointed people. So be wary that this is happening. Of course, in the old days, 2 strokes were everywhere, and we always ran 9.25 type diameters. But today, 4 strokes are everywhere in the smaller groupings, and they are using smaller propellers. So it's a bit of a catch, especially if you're on a website trying to order something and not knowing which gearbox is really on that engine. So for Yamaha, in 2 horsepower and 2.5, 3 horsepower, there's 4 pitches available. They're always 7.25 diameter. They go from 5 pitch through to 8 pitch. In the 6 to 9.9 horsepower, or 6, 8, F6s and F8s, there's 4 pitches again available. They're normally 6.5, 7.5, so they're 1-inch increments. Doesn't make a great deal of difference, really. Obviously, if you're a big boy, not a sumo wrestler, but 110 kilo, and you're only running 6 to 8 horsepower, you're going to need that lower pitch. For the canal rats, for the kids, of course they want the highest pitch, of course, to race their mates. So in this grouping too, for yachts, we always cater for 9.9, 15 horsepower with high thrust props. High thrust props generally are a huge blade area with no camber in the blade. So they're a flat blade. All outboard propellers, other outboard propellers, are for moving forward, not really for reverse, so they have curvature in the blade called camber. But for high thrust propellers, the blades are flat, so you've got equal thrust in forward and reverse, because let's face it, if you've got an auxiliary on a sailing boat or even a power boat, you want a bit of manoeuvrability as well and pulling up power. So that's why the blades are flat. So we do a couple of ranges in this, especially for auxiliaries and for yachties. 4 by 10 by 7, very, very, very good performers. Don't expect a lot of speed because we're only ever going to talk 5, 6, 7 knots. So that's the Yamaha range covered. There are a number of propellers that will interchange. So At Propeller Warehouse, we're at the cutting edge of high strength aluminium, which is 5 times stronger than normal aluminium. It's a leading technology in casting. It's what's happening in the world. The world's having a lot of new technologies emerging, which are bigger and better. It's really an aviation type product or material. So soon to be will be a new 4-blader that will marry from Yamaha over to Honda, and with a little bit of my influence will also be the new cutting edge blades for electric motors. So that's a lot of good news for the future. Everything is going to start moving to electrics. I think we just covered the Yamaha range, then over into, this is of course our Propeller Warehouse Australian catalogue. We move over to Mercury. Mercury and the small portables generally are made in Japan by Tohatsu. So obviously anything with a split pin is how we sort of describe it, that holds the propeller nut on, is actually a Japanese gearbox. So if you've got a split pin holding your propeller nut on and you have a Mercury, well, it's really a Tohatsu rebadged Mercury. So keep that in mind. Tohatsu make quite a big range of small portables, again in the 2 groupings, 4 to 6 and 8 to 9.8, and also of course 9.9 to 20, which is where they first started, 9.9, 15 horsepower. And the larger motors, the 20 horsepower motors, are fuel injected. So that leads to another common problem in the industry, whereby there's only certain types of propellers you can get, which haven't really changed much, and we're the first to actually develop a special propeller for fuel injected 20 horsepowers and 25s and things of that nature. So to give you a little bit of a comparison, I think you'll be able to see this quite well. These are the 9.9, 15, 20 horsepower conventional props that you'll find everywhere. You can buy them not just from me, but other competitors. This is what we've developed for 20 horsepower fuel injected motors, because they've got more grunt. The torque curve, the engine goes through to its rev range a lot quicker. So it definitely needs more blade area, and we also have introduced some very nice tight factory cupping into the blades. So that's a little bit of a thing for Tohatsu and Mercury. I've heard on the grapevine that Tohatsu's coming out with a MF30 fuel injected soon, lightest in its class. So I'm pretty certain this prop here will be well accepted into that grouping. That covers Merc, which also I just covered Tohatsu at the same time just then in saying all that. The next little grouping for portables would have to be Suzuki. Very, very popular now. God, I don't know, everywhere you look there's a Suzuki dealer. And Suzuki run pretty much the same horsepower groupings. It's all quite competitive, 4 to 6, 8 to 20. Of course, Suzuki was the very first company to introduce fuel injection in small portable motors. We learnt a lot. I was with Solus at that time, and we learnt a lot about how to improve the performance, because many customers with a Suzuki really complained bitterly about a lot of cavitation. We had to improve and make a larger blade area and also add more cupping. Some other little innovations which we pioneered were making little tracking plates to hold the water around the blade tips of the prop. So you've got to imagine this prop doing this quite quickly, the boat moving quite quickly, and then if you put a plate over the top of it, what we were trying to do was compress the water around the blade tips, prevent the cavitation. So the little tracking plates that you see, and there's quite a few out there in the market now, they definitely on small boats help to get the boat up on the plane. Not just do that, but hold water around the blade tips of the prop. So there's a very good range, again, all in high strength aluminium, 5 times stronger. Stainless steel isn't used or made for any of the small portables for very good reason. Most of it is all about the fact that you've got to have some give when you hit something. Portable engines are generally in shallow water, you know, and you're always going to be wearing it down, and the wear and tear on the gearbox, the pinion gears, everything in that gearbox is the reason why the manufacturers don't make stainless steel for the little 4 and 6 horsepowers. You can of course get them for the 15, 20s, they're a lot more robust. We have a fairly big range in stainless steel, all the way through, well, from 9 pitch for commercial, maybe hire boats, that type of thing, all the way through to dinghy racing in 15 pitch. And it's pretty amazing that you can get some pretty decent boat speeds out of a 20 horsepower running at 6,000 revs. Of course, the propeller's not doing 6,000 revs, the engine's doing 6,000 revs, but most of them are around 2-to-1 gear ratio. So these little spinners are doing 3,000 revs. Pretty amazing, and that's why stainless works quite well in those applications. So what have we done? We've done Yamaha, we've done Mercury, we've done Tohatsu, we've done Suzuki, and of course, well, I'll just bypass BRP Johnson because none of them are around anymore. Sad to say. There was a number of OMC Johnson props that I actually loved, and I'll talk about that once we get into that section. So Honda have always had, in fact, they were the first to introduce 4-strokes into Australia, or 4-strokes, I think, you know, everywhere really in engines. So 8 horsepower to 20 horsepower. We don't do a lot of the smaller ones. There's not much, you know, the manufacturers really don't make much profit on any of this sort of stuff. So you'll find that in the small horsepower groupings, there isn't a big range of variety of different blades. Pretty much every blade is nearly identical to what you get when you buy the motor. The only difference that we can offer is a lot more durable and more affordable. So Honda, I briefed on it before, we will be introducing a new special 4-blade Honda in months to come for the 9.9, 15, 20 horsepower. Sorry, it does fit the 8 as well. And it will be a larger diameter than what you see. And I am fairly confident Honda will be coming out with a fuel injected model in the next little while. I don't know exactly when, otherwise they'll shoot me. Okay, BRP Johnson Evinrude. Of course, in the little motors, there is a tie-up, or there has been a lot of association between Suzuki, Japan, and Johnson Evinrude in the past. So some of those propellers that you see kind of look very much similar to a Suzuki on the Johnson. Even though there's no longer the company anymore, there's still many, many engines out there, especially in America where fresh water is dominant, and the engines just last a way lot longer than what you see in saltwater environments like Australia, South Africa and New Zealand and what have you. So we still manufacture a big range of Johnson and Evinrude propellers. Common sizes, there's maybe around 5 different pitches that would look something like this. So there's still, and they'll be still around for years and years yet to come. So it's a shame that BRP Johnson went that way, but who knows what's around the corner. They might come out with electrics next, who knows. So I think this just about wraps up the portable side of it. There's a lot of interest in electrics in the portable groups. There's a number of companies in Australia here who are buying portable gear cases and putting electric motors coupled to lithium batteries, and of course they're using conventional props. We're hoping to change all that with a dedicated electric blade geometries for that, and funnily enough those electric blade geometries seem to be well suited to the fuel injection that's coming out in smaller motors in nearly every brand now as well. So that covers nearly the whole range from 4 horsepower through. It's all available. We have 6,000 props in our warehouse. We've got containers coming in all the time. There's actually no shortage for us. I'm part of the factory anyway, so I can sort of pull a few strings. I'd love you to join us for the next segments, which is a bit more exciting, in the 25-30s and all the different categories up to 400 horsepower. It's part of this is part one of parts of 7 different groupings of what's available in props. Thanks for watching.